Hey, welcome back. You know that feeling when you're rummaging through a junk drawer, looking for a AA battery for a remote, and your fingers brush against something you can't even identify? A weird little cylinder, maybe covered in dust. You hold it up, squint, and think, what on earth was this for? Now imagine that. But the junk drawer is 2,000 years old, and it's buried under the sands of Iraq. And the weird little cylinder you find might just rewrite history. That's exactly what happened in 1936, near Baghdad. And what they pulled from that earth has sparked a mystery that's been electrifying historians, scientists, and conspiracy theorists ever since. I'm Ibnul Jayf Farabi, and this is Hidden Histories, the Untold Files. Today, we're investigating episode 33, the Baghdad Battery. Did ancient Parthians discover electricity? Let's set the scene. It's 1936, in the village of Khujut Rabu, just outside modern-day Baghdad. A new railway is being built, and workers are digging through an ancient foundation. Their shovels hit pottery, not unusual for the region. This land is a layer cake of empires. But what archaeologist Wilhelm König found when he examined the artifacts was puzzling. It was a simple, unassuming clay jar, about the size of a man's fist. But inside it was a copper cylinder, sealed at the top with asphalt. And inside that cylinder was an iron rod. The rod was held firmly in place by that asphalt plug, completely isolated from the copper. And there were signs of corrosion on the iron, a specific kind of corrosion. It looked like it had been in contact with an acidic substance. Vinegar, maybe, or grape juice. Put those pieces together. An acidic electrolyte in the jar, the iron rod, the copper cylinder. You have a basic electrochemical cell. You have a battery. The artifacts were dated to the Parthian period, roughly 250 BCE to 250 CE. The Parthians were a formidable empire, Rome's great rival in the East, masters of trade and warfare. But were they masters of electroplating? That's the first and most tantalizing theory. If you fill that jar with an acidic electrolyte like vinegar, it creates a potential difference, a voltage, between the iron and the copper. It's not much, about 1 volt. But connect several of these jars together in a series, and you start to get some real power. What could you do with that power? Well, one compelling possibility is electroplating. You could use the electrical current to deposit a thin layer of gold or silver onto another metal object, like a statue or a piece of jewelry. And we know the Parthians and other ancient cultures in the region produced fine, microscopically thin gilded objects. The official explanation has always been fire gilding, a mercury-based process. But what if there was another way? The idea is that a craftsperson could have suspended a small statue in a salt solution, connected it to a series of these Baghdad cells, and used a piece of gold as the other electrode. Slowly, surely, gold particles would migrate and coat the statue. It's a silent, almost magical process. And it would explain why we've never found wires or conductors. Those could have been simple, perishable materials like thread or papyrus, soaked in the same electrolyte. But of course, in any good mystery, there's a counter-argument. And the skeptics have a strong one. The main issue is, we've never found anything else. No wires, no leads, no devices that clearly used electricity. Not a single shred of textual or pictorial evidence from any ancient source describing electrical phenomenon in this way. If this was a known technology, even a secret one reserved for elite artisans, wouldn't there be some hint? Some obscure reference? Furthermore, some archaeologists argue these objects were simply storage containers for sacred scrolls. The iron rod held a rolled-up sheet of papyrus or parchment, the copper cylinder protected it, and the asphalt seal kept it airtight. The corrosion could have been from organic materials degrading, not from an electrolyte. It's a far more mundane explanation. And in archaeology, the principle of Occam's razor often applies. The simplest explanation is usually the right one. Yet, the simplest explanation isn't always the most satisfying, is it? And here's where the experimenters come in. Because the best way to test a hypothesis is to try and break it. In the 1970s, a German Egyptologist named Arne Egebrecht actually built replicas of the Baghdad jars. He filled them with grape juice as the electrolyte, connected several in series, and used them to electroplate a small silver statue with a layer of gold. And it worked. It took about 2 weeks, but it worked. Modern engineers and hobbyists have replicated this dozens of times since. The object, as described, functions as a battery. That fact is inescapable. So even if its intended purpose was for storage, the Parthians, perhaps entirely by accident, created a device that could hold an electrical charge. It makes you wonder, did some ancient artisan, by pure serendipity, notice a tingle in his fingers when he touched the iron and copper while the jar was filled with wine? Did he see tiny bubbles form on one of the metals? These are the observable effects of an electrochemical reaction. The leap from observation to application is a huge one, but it's not impossible. This is where I personally get stuck, in the best way. As an engineer, I look at the design. That asphalt seal is brilliant. It's an insulator. It holds the two metals apart, preventing a short circuit, while still allowing access to the top. That's not a random design choice for a scroll holder. You'd just use a clay lid. And the specific metals, iron and copper, are two metals with a strong potential difference in the electrochemical series. Out of all the metals they could have used, they ended up with this perfect pairing. Coincidence? Maybe. But engineering is about intentionality. Sitting in my workshop in New York, surrounded by modern circuit boards and lithium-ion packs, I look at a drawing of this simple clay pot, and I feel a profound connection across time. It's a humble, elegant design. It's the kind of thing you'd prototype. So what's the truth? Did the Parthians have a basic understanding of electricity? The conservative historian in me has to say, probably not. We lack the corroborating evidence. But the storyteller, the part of me that loves a good mystery, shouts, but they held it in their hands. They built the device. Whether they knew its full potential is the real question. Perhaps it was a technology that bloomed in a single workshop and was lost, its purpose forgotten, its need, its principle never fully understood. History is littered with such dead ends. The Antikythera mechanism, Greek fire, Damascus steel, technologies that seem to appear, dazzle, and vanish, waiting centuries to be rediscovered. The Baghdad Battery, for me, isn't just about whether ancient people had lights in their temples. It's a reminder of the universal nature of curiosity. It's about the human instinct to experiment, to combine materials, and see what happens. A Parthian artisan and a modern tinkerer in a garage are driven by the same spark, pun intended. The object itself is a message in a bottle, washed up on our shore from a distant past, asking us not to underestimate the ingenuity of those who came before. It whispers that discovery isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it's a circuit, and we spend 2,000 years trying to close the loop. Thank you for listening to this episode of Hidden Histories, The Untold Files. If this mystery sparked your curiosity, please share it with a friend. Your shares and subscriptions are what keep this independent podcast going. For more deep dives into the shadows of history, visit our production home at Light Not Studios. https://www.lightnotstudios.com. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi. Until next time, keep wondering.